Hello students, today we're going to talk about atonement theories. What is atonement? Good question. It's the first question on your notes and is a very important question that many Christians have tried to answer throughout the past 2,000 years. Specifically, how does atonement relate to Christ? If it doesn't relate to Christ, then it's probably not Christian. Probably shouldn't listen to that atonement theory. But we're going to do two Christian atonement theories. Before we get into the two atonement theories, we've got to define what atonement is. You might remember the story of the Bible that I had up here before. And I made you guys describe it on one of your quizzes during the third quarter. And how it went was, it described God and man together. God and man unified. And I know you guys are just going to tune out once you see this because, Mr. Stryker, we went over this. Well, real quick, God and man unified. Then they're disunified, and then Christ is the unifier, and then in the church age we're becoming reunified with God, man is. And then here you have full reunity between God and man. And so what is atonement then in this context? Well, atonement is and I'm going to look at my definition here just so I know, it's the uniting of God and man, okay? So what is Christ doing on the cross? He is the reunifier. He is atoning, okay? And this is where atonement happens. It happens on the cross. It happens in Christ's crucifixion and his resurrection. And we're going to look at two ways that Christians believe what is going on here. Okay? And so it's really atoning work is the reunification. Okay? That's another word that you could use for it. The atoning work is the uniting of God and man, the reunification of God and man. Let's get into our two atonement theories. What are two atonement theories? Well, one of them we're going to call Christus Victor, okay? And I'm going to do CV for short. And then the other one is going to be substitutionary atonement, okay? SA for short. Substitutionary atonement. And Christus Victor theory says that essentially Christ is the victor, okay? And of course, you might say, Mr. Swiger, of course I believe Christ is the victor. That's the one that I'm going to agree with. Well, let me think about this for a second. Christus Victor, okay, is going to emphasize Christ's victory on the powers of evil, okay? When I say that, I'm not talking about the powers of evil that are within a man, okay? I'm talking about the powers of evil external to the man. So, you have the devil, you have maybe his tendency to sin that is outside of the man. So when he's born, maybe he's born corrupt. That would be something that comes external. Maybe you have sinful tendencies, or we can even just call them temptations. Okay, he has his tendencies, the devil, death. Okay, these are all things that come to man external to man. Okay, these are evils that are outside of man. Okay, as opposed to evils that are going to be inside man. So we'll do a little arrow here. These are going to be the evils that are inside man. His sin, his actual sin. Okay, his wrongdoings. His listening or obeying the devil. it's all the sin that causes death for him. Okay, so we have this distinction between the external evils and then the internal evils. Okay, I might just summarize some of the external evils as the devil, because the devil is the primary external evil to man. Okay, and then I might just summarize man's internal evils as sin. So just to have some terminology. So are we talking about sin? Are we talking about the devil? Or are we talking about sin, like a man's personal sin? Okay, now let's get into the two theories now that we have some of our terminology cleared up. The two atonement theories, between them, the first one, Christus Victor, is going to emphasize that Christ's victory over the external evils. Okay? So you have man. Wow, that is you know what? We're just going to keep his little body there. Yep. There we go. We have man, and then I don't want to draw the devil. That's kind of messing with some weird stuff. So what we're going to do is we'll just write the devil. Okay? And Christus Victor basically takes out the devil, takes out the external evil that is oppressing man, that has control over man. Okay? Satan has control, the devil has control over death of this man. But at the cross cuts this out. Okay? So the cross basically takes back ownership or authority of man under God and not under the devil anymore. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else I need to mention to emphasize this. Okay, this is going to now affect the way that God and man do salvation. I'll ask you this question. Is this thought, or is this way of atonement going to cause a more semi-Pelagian understanding of man's role in salvation, or a more Augustinian understanding? Okay, you need to be able to answer that question. Think about that one for a little bit. Okay, is this going to emphasize the semi-Pelagian way of sanctification, or the Augustinian? You might have to refer back to your old notes to kind of check up on that again. Okay, let's get into substitutionary atonement. So, substitutionary atonement, or the term SA right now, is going to emphasize that Christ takes the punishment that man deserves from his own internal evil. Okay? So here's a guy. He might look like a nice, righteous man, but really he's just a dirty old sinner. And he's got this sin, and in him, like inherent to him, okay, in the substitutionary atonement theory. And God, because God can't let sin go unpunished, according to substitutionary atonement theory, has got to punish this sin. Okay? So God's going to basically inflict his wrath or his punishment on man. There goes the man. Okay? However, if Christ, a man, replaces or substitutes himself like he does on the cross, then Christ is the one who takes on the wrath or the punishment that is inherent to man. Okay? It's not Christ who actually deserves it, but Christ takes it on. And Christ is actually killed. Okay? And he, instead of man experiencing God's wrath, experiences God's wrath. This affects the way that if you believe in substitutionary atonement, it affects the way you live. Just like if you believe in Christus Victor atonement, it affects the way you live. Is this going to be more semi-Pelagian or a more Augustinian way of living? Okay, are you going to emphasize God's complete grace in your salvation? It's completely up to God, or are you going to emphasize that it's God and man working together? Okay. Let's see if there's anything else I need to say about these. Okay, now I want you to think a little bit about what you believe yourself. So, what atonement theory do you believe? So if we have this scale here, and if you understand what the notes is asking you for, you can go ahead and shut off the video and just start answering the question on the notes. Basically, the answers, where on the scale would you put yourself, and why? Otherwise, I'm going to walk you through this little part of the notes here. So we have only Christus Victor over here. We have an emphasis on Christus Victor. Then we have equal. Then we have emphasis on substitutionary atonement. And then we have only substitutionary atonement. So how is God and man unified? How is their atonement? What do you think? Well, if you think that it's only Christus Victor, if you think that Christ basically wipes out the devil and the evil influences over man so that God and man can work together towards God's salvation, if that's all you think it is, then you'd be in this category, okay? If you think that that's primarily what God does, but he also in some way, Christ in some way actually took on punishment a little bit, but we should definitely emphasize this more when we're talking about atonement, then you're going to emphasize Christus Victor. If you think they're equal, then you're going to put equal. You're not going to emphasize one or the other. They're both equally important. Okay? If you're going to emphasize substitutionary atonement, then you're going to talk about, Christ took on your sin. He was the substitute for your wrath. And then you're going to say, well, also, he took the power away from the devil in death in his resurrection, but primarily you're going to focus on his substitute, him being the substitute for your sin. Or do you only believe in substitutionary atonement where Christ is not the victor over the devil at all, but in fact should be understood completely in our own sin. Okay, the devil's not really a concern. It's more about just completely about us. So go ahead and mark what you think, and then explain why on your notes there. Tomorrow we're going to continue our conversation on atonement, and so I am excited to continue to teach on that. I'll be honest, I really miss you guys. I like talking to my students. Please take advantage of my office hours. If you have any questions on how to access those, then shoot me an email or just post in Google Classroom somewhere. I really enjoy just getting to talk to one of you. I'm thinking about starting a theological conversations with Swigert, just an open conversation. You can invite other freshmen, you can invite other non-freshmen. So if you're interested in that, let me know as well. Then I might, if I see some interest, I might actually do it.